Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Arsenal are all about alliteration as Arteta astoundingly appears heir apparent to Arsène amid apprehension and anxiety. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. All right, I have to admit, I cheated. Heir apparent starts with an H. But Arsenal are all about alliteration as Arteta astoundingly appears heir apparent to Arsène amid apprehension and anxiety is pretty good alliteration. And you do have to wonder if Arsenal knows they are allowed to hire a manager whose name does not start with the letter A. Allegri, Arteta, Arsene Wenger. I mean, I'm just saying, push it out a few letters, see what you find. In any event, I am back. Thank you for the flood of messages expressing how much you missed me on the last episode. I kid. I did not receive a single one, but that's okay. I won't take it too personally, but I hate all of you. Here to carry the podcast while I simply stew over my anger and my resentment towards the listeners is Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Stilberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. I think hair apparent is got to be a headline.
Oh, touche, my friend. See, now that's what. See, that's why I am not paid for this podcast, but you get top billing and top dollar. Hair apparent, brilliant. Not alliterative, but still.
Yeah.
Quite well done. And Clive is here. You don't have to do anything clever, Clive. Don't feel the pressure to live up. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC.
Hello. And I can give you an A. How about Allardyce?
Oh, touche. But no, thank you. He's surely waiting to replace Zidane at Madrid. That call is coming one of these days. We will talk about Arteta. I think we have to talk about Arteta, but this is the post-match podcast, and there was a match. It was against Huddersfield. It was Arsene Wenger's last match. We did our goodbyes to Arsene Wenger, so we are not going to do it again in full, but we should at least cover the experience of the final game. A little thought on the game. I mean, just first things first, Clive. You know, these were nothing games as the league wound down, and it really was a dreadful league season when you think about it. This match had a little bit of everything from this season. I mean, we could have conceded 5, 6, 7, 8 goals. The defending was not great. But by the same token, there was some good attacking play. I thought the goal we scored was sort of typical Wenger ball and a great finish by Aubameyang, who really looks like a penalty box striker, the likes of which we have not seen in a long time. Was that sort of the simple highlight for you? Just once again, the excitement and opportunity and possibility presented by Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, you know, the new attack lock. Is that the new attacking talent that's at the club for next season?
Yeah, Aubameyang's he looks like something that could be very special. I hope the new manager thinks the same. I think almost this game was all about off the pitch, really. On the pitch, sort of, we got away there early on, and then we scored, and then did our normal to and fro type game. There was nothing in the game, really, nothing to really write home about. There was no, as far as I saw, Tim's got a different view, there was no massively standout performances or particular trends, apart from Aubameyang, really. I think what he's done in a short space of time is really worth noting. With different people, different formations, moved out to the left, played at centre forward. It's been a great sort of get-to-know period for him, and us to get to know him as well. And we haven't had a striker so good in the box, but also good outside of the box, a threat from halfway line and a threat from the 6-yard line. That's a significant sort of forward, which allows us to, when we have teams to sit in, to really not be concerned, but also if teams push us back, they push us back at their peril, right? So he's going to be interesting to watch next year.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. I mean, you know, it's great when a player you loved from afar joins your club and then, at least initially, looks like he's everything you hoped he would be. I'm pretty enthusiastic about it. I mean, Tim, just a quick word about the game. You couldn't watch and be excited by the attacking play without at least being a little concerned about the defending. I mean, was this game, apart from the fact that we did get our lone points of the calendar year away, so good for us, apart from that, was this really a microcosm of our season in some ways? Some inspired attacking play in moments with interspersed with comedy defending along the way?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think you can attribute at least a little bit of that to a fairly unfamiliar centre-half pairing. The last kind of 6 games or so, he seems to have split the time between Chambers and Holding. And I've been really, really impressed with Chambers actually the last couple of months. But understandably, I think he seems to have given the last kind of 3 games to Holding, which, just giving the new manager something to look at there. And so there was a little bit of that going on. But yeah, it's not exactly atypical of us away from home to be a little bit vulnerable, a little bit, loose off the ball, a little bit too easy to get through. I think if Huddersfield had like a really good striker, or not even a really good striker, like a striker, we might have been in some trouble on occasions. One thing I will say is that the atmosphere around this is one of the best atmospheres I've ever been involved in a Premier League game. Like
some of the hashtag banter back and forth was fantastic.
That was quite good. But they were in such a cheerful mood, and we were having a drink beforehand, and the sun was out, and they've stayed up and everything, and they were in very, very jovial mood, and they're from Yorkshire as well, so obviously they're very talkative, affable, nice people. So all the way, on the train up there and stuff, all of them like happy Yorkshiremen and women. I mean, that's conversational dynamite, basically. And loads of them saying, "Oh, I hope it's a really great game for Arsene Wenger," and stuff like that. And one guy was telling me, he was saying, like, I think everyone saw David Wagner's quotes in the build-up to this game, which was basically that he gave them 2 days off and he didn't care what they did with them. And someone was telling me that when they went into training on Saturday, one of the players was pictured with a pint.
Great. Well, they put up a hell of a fight, considering.
Well, exactly. So before the game, with what Wagner said, with what the Huddersfield fans were telling me, they were just like, "Look, we are absolutely just, nobody cares about this game." I met 2 guys who'd been at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday night. They said they missed their coach back, so they were like, "Oh no, now we have to stay out all night in London and get the 5 a.m. train back." And they sounded like they had a great time. So there's a real like carnival atmosphere, and a real like, we don't care, and actually our priority is that Arsene gets a nice send-off. So actually I was really, really surprised by the intensity with which they played. It didn't even look like freedom to me. Like, they weren't trying to play champagne football or anything, but they were really getting in our faces, really pressing. And I think it's been painfully obvious we've really struggled with that approach all season, which is why we've been far better at home than we have away from home, because away from home teams come onto us a bit more, and Huddersfield did that. And actually I think we got a more difficult game than we were kind of bargaining for. But that said, I'm glad that Arsenal didn't switch off. They did, we looked like we were huffing and puffing a bit, but the endeavour was there, which I was fairly pleased with. So yeah, in some ways a bit of a microcosm of our season away from home. In other ways, a really quite different and unique game.
Yeah, and just as a final thought, Tim, I mean, we've said, I think, everything that needs to be said in appreciation of Arsene, but just in terms of his behavior on the day, coming over and thanking the away fans, bowing to them, that sort of, I think, what will become an iconic photo that's remembered for years, and giving his tie away and spending some time with the fans, and just all the content that was created, and the Guard of Honor and the Merci Arsene that Huddersfield put up on their digital boards around the stadium. I mean, did you have any sort of surprisingly emotional reaction to it? Because I really felt after the final home game that the rest of it would just slip into obscurity, but this did seem to have a little emotional weight to it.
Yeah, I always felt this one would too, in a different way to the Burnley game. It was the Leicester game that always felt weird to me. Like, it was a bit like, you've sent someone off at their leaving do, and then you go back to work the next day and they're sat there at their desk. But this one had a little bit different weight, also aided by the fact that there was nothing riding on it for Huddersfield. It would have been understandably difficult for them to be as generous if they were in a position where they needed points. But yes, it was very emotional. It was a little bit strange, because I think we all felt like we'd already said goodbye, and I really do wish that Burnley game was the last game. But yeah, there was an emotional weight to this, and I loved the bow, and I just think over the last couple of weeks, I know we said this. after the Burnley game in particular, but he really looks like he's enjoyed it this last couple of weeks. He looks like he's really genuinely
totally
enjoyed that tide turning, and that's been wonderful to see. And it was wonderful to see him smiling on Sunday, because it must have been difficult for him as well. There must have been a big part of him that was very, very sad, but that looked to me, at least outwardly, he manifested a real joy in the occasion, which I was delighted to see.
Yeah, I said go ahead, Clive.
I was going to say, I think we're going to see a different man in the next few months, whatever he does. I think he's going to be a massive voice in football. I think we're going to see the real Wenger without having to worry about the team he manages and how people at other clubs are going to talk about him. I hope he takes a little break and really has an opinion about the broader game and where it's going, where the European structure is going, where the world structure is going.
Take a shot. Where do you see him landing?
I hope he doesn't land. I hope he actually takes a complete year off, or maybe goes. I'd love to see him go into international football. I think he's got more to offer parts of the world where football isn't so developed. I think he's been to the Far East, but maybe the Middle East or something like that. I think he's got a real world global view of the game. I've always felt he was trapped in our job. He should have lifted himself into a much more statesman-like role, because how he talks like a very global statesman-like football person that does a bit of coaching of the Arsenal first team on the side. And that's how it sort of looked, and we picked him apart. Now he's lifted his head up. We look at him as he really is, and I think it'd be interesting to watch to see how his character develops, how he's received, how approachable he'll be to different parts of the game, because he's not linked to a single club. If I was him, I'd see how the football world reacts to him and maybe select something which allows him far more breadth rather than depth within one club.
His commentary at the World Cup will be fascinating, because now the sort of gag order is off, right? I mean, I think he will always be polite and statesmanly and maybe play his cards close to the vest a little bit, but he can maybe say some things now that he couldn't have said before. It'd be interesting to see if he lets anything slip. I did think over the last few days you saw some of the old Arsene return at his press conferences, some of the humor, some of the lightness. I thought his comment about they flew the wrong banners was pretty funny behind the plane. He just seemed to kind of get back to who he is. And, I said it on the post-Burnley podcast, or I think that's when it was, just that as someone who left a career behind that had weighed me down and that I felt trapped in, it wasn't until I really walked away that I realized what a great decision it was. And I think it feels a little bit like he's recognizing now that, oh, you know what, this is going to be okay, and this was the right move. So that's good. Look, it's 12 minutes, 35 seconds in, and I think we've done a bang-up job avoiding the Arteta discussion this long. So let's get down to it. It does look like Mikel Arteta is going to be named the next Arsenal manager. He was an Arsenal player pretty recently. He has never been a manager. And I think there is an interesting issue, and I've noticed this on Twitter. Nuance is lost on a lot of people. So let's try to have a nuanced debate about this. And Tim, I think you can be concerned this is the wrong appointment, that it is an appointment that lacks ambition or that is overly risky, unnecessarily risky, and still feel that if this is the appointment they are going to make, that we really have no choice but to get behind this manager and support him, at least until we see what he can do. So people saying, well, we're going to protest. Look, I get if you don't feel this is the right decision. You can absolutely intelligently believe this is the wrong decision. But if it's the decision the club is making, it seems crazy to me to not support the manager, at least until you've seen what he can do. So where do you come down on the wisdom of the decision and how to receive it?
Yeah, it's I kind of tweeted a little bit about this earlier today, and so the thing I feel really conflicting emotions about this, because I'm not sure it's the right move, and it's not what I would do, albeit what I would do is pretty irrelevant. And I'm not the CEO of Arsenal Football Club for many reasons, which I don't need to go into. So I'm not really qualified to make the decision anyway. But
by the way, in July, we will have a podcast episode that explains why Tim is not the CEO of Arsenal Football Club. So don't worry, we won't leave that just hanging out there. We'll get to it. Yeah.
But at the same time, weirdly, I'm really excited about it in a way that I don't think any of the other candidates, except maybe Nagelsmann, would excite me. Even if you gave me the choice of all of the candidates and I have to assume that they'd say, yes, Tim, yes, I'll come and manage Arsenal. I mean, I'd go for Allegri. I'm not sure how much that would excite me in the genuine sense of the word, but I think it would probably be, there's a good chance it would be the right call. There is going to be some doubt, some question marks about whoever it's going to be. I mean, that's the way managerial appointments work. And short of hiring Pep Guardiola, there's no such thing as a sure thing. But this kind of excites me, and there's a big part of me that wants it to happen, even though I think it might not work, just because it's completely unknown. It's completely unknown. Nobody is really, in my opinion, authorised to have a strong opinion on this. I think having some doubts, I have some doubts and some reservations. But I've had people tweeting me today, like going, I don't think he can sort our defence out. And I'm like, on what basis? I mean, he might
how
not.
How would you know? How would you even begin to know? I mean,
Exactly.
That's the problem with evaluating this. You literally have nothing to go on, which, by the way, is kind of the argument against him. And, I think the question, Clive, that I have is there are two parts to this. One, does he understand football? I just went Russian. Does he understand football well enough? Yes, Chekhov. Does he understand football well enough to coach it, instruct it, teach it? He very well may. Is he mature enough, experienced enough, knowledgeable enough to go through the daily routine of being the manager at a top-flight club? Well, he certainly can't be, because he's never done it. So my question for you, Clive, is, and you've been around players at the youth level, and I know that's a lot different, but what is your concern about whether 29-year-old, 30-year-old players, Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, players getting up into the senior parts of their career, Mesut Ozil, can look at a Mikel Arteta, especially when things go bad, when the going gets tough, and respect him enough to listen to him and believe that he has the solution?
I think maybe the way players look at managers is changing. I think they like somebody in their own era. They don't want someone that wears, 3 sizes too big trousers to compare to them. They want someone that looks a little bit like them, has got recent experience that they can sort of,
identify with. Yep.
Thank you very much, Elliot. I was struggling with that one.
Happens to me all the time.
And I'm not worried about that bit, to be honest. I think it all comes back to our own perspective on this. I'm with Tim. Allegri was the one I wanted, and I asked myself the question, why did I want him? I wanted him because I wanted the club to react. I wanted somebody strong to come in that's going to force the board to think about how they support a manager. And it made me feel comfortable. Big names make you feel good, right? So whether they perform or not, they make you feel good. There we go. We're back. We've got a big name manager in. But I for all that fact, I couldn't see him on the touchline. I just couldn't envisage him on the Arsenal touchline for some reason. And I tweeted as much. And my choice has always been Nagelsmann, because I think he was the youngest coach I knew that had a real strong reputation, that had taken a team to the Champions League twice. And he's like 31 years of age. I thought, if they're going to go young, they're going to bring somebody into the group. Because remember, I'm looking at Arsenal now as not so much as a manager, but a team of people. And there's a team that's being developed, and this person fits into that team and brings their own coaching team with them. And so I felt Nagelsmann was the one, as a guess and a hunch, would fit into this. And then I think about the nearest thing to Nagelsmann of all the people that we've been debated, and I suppose Arteta is the nearest thing. And do I think he's going to do a good job? I really don't know. It depends on how he surrounds himself, right?
But you don't have any concern about the players being open to him and willing to listen to him and seeing him as a respected figure in the dressing room and the clear leader of the team?
I don't have any concerns, because the one part about him that really is outstanding is his personality and his persona and how he comes across. I was quite interested that Guardiola wanted to take him straight away, but then the other guy I wanted to take him was Pochettino. And whether you forget he's a Spurs guy, he knows what he's talking about, and his coaching staff is excellent, and their attention to detail is obsessive, like Man City's attention to detail. So that's a huge compliment for somebody that's never even coached, Then he coaches for 2 years, has a key role. We don't know what he's like, but he's within the village of football. He's obviously got a reputation because people talk about him very highly. So my thought is, I don't know enough to have a strong position for or against. But what I will say is that for the last couple of years, I've been talking about blowing it up and bringing layers of people in and deepening the people infrastructure. And when it happens, I'm not going to sit here and question the minutiae of it, because I want this. I want to feel the fear. I want to feel what change really is. And I want to embrace that change and say, well, yeah, I'm ready for this. And I don't mind how it goes, because we need to change so much within the club. And if Arteta's the person to start that process off, then yeah, let's get behind him and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about the next 20-year manager. I mean, if it goes poorly, it's 2 or 3 at the most. If it goes well, it's probably 5 or 6 at the most. Tim,
we're not buying a house with a 25-year mortgage. We're buying a car with a lease to purchase for 2 to 3 years. That's what we're doing.
I don't have the credit for that, but I assume that's what most people do. Tim, what about people who make the charge that this isn't changed? That the problem is he was there too recently, that he was under Arsene Wenger's tutelage, that he played at a time when Arsenal was a very comfortable, underachieving club, that he's familiar with some of the players, although admittedly not as many of them anymore, but that the Arsenal he knows and what he brings to the Arsenal is unfortunately not separate enough, not disconnected enough, that some of the same cliques, some of the same habits, some of the same culture may still lie within him that are the precise things we wanted to change.
I mean, first of all, I think people underestimate just how much churn there's been in the squad since he left 2 years ago. There's really only about 4 or 5 first-team players left. Have a look at the squad list. A lot of it has changed.
I mean, by the way, I'll just stop you. It is pretty astounding that we're saying it's a lot of turnover, that the only 4 or 5 players in the squad have played with the guy we're about to name manager. I mean, that's still pretty incredible.
That's like 4 or 5 if you don't include, he played with Wilshere. Is he going to be here? He played with Ospina. Is he going to be here?
The fact that he played with any of them at all is, it's still pretty amazing.
Yeah. And then there's like Koscielny. Well, how significant a figure is he going to be? Czech, how significant a figure is he going to be? Is Ospina even going to be here?
Oh, I hope not.
There's not that. It's like you're down to basically Bellerin, Monreal, and a couple of others, and Ramsey. Is he going to be here?
Is Bellerin going to be
here? Yeah, exactly. A lot has happened.
Even still, you take my point, right? That culturally, experientially, Arsene Wenger-wise, is this change, or is this potentially not change? Is that the problem?
I mean, the thing is, we don't know, because we don't know how Arteta was within that. I mean, we're even making assumptions that that's what the culture was like. I mean, I think it probably was, but none of us actually know that for sure. These are, I think well observed, but inferences that we've made. We don't know how each player interacted with that, and we don't know that Arteta was, one of the ones who was comfortable. It doesn't sound to me like he was. And everything I've heard is that actually he was one of the ones who, sometimes made it a bit uncomfortable. I heard some years ago that the departure of Alex Song was largely a fallout with Steve Bold, but that Arteta had his say there. I've heard the same about Wojciech Szczesny going. The things I heard are that his opinion was respected enough that when he said, no, we got to get this guy out of here, that people listened, but also that he had the wherewithal and the assertiveness to say that and to make that known. I mean, these are things I've heard over the last few years, not the last few weeks. So, but again, I can't 100% vouch that's true because I wasn't there. So I'm a bit like I've had loads of people again tweeting me like just going, oh yeah, Arsenal just want a yes man, and I'm intrigued as to where this idea that he's a yes man comes from, just because he used to play for us. Would Vieira be a yes man because he used to play for us?
No, and while I don't necessarily agree with it, Tim, my defense of that would simply be that it is easier to say to Arteta when you're giving a young man the Arsenal job, you're taking this under the agreement that you will let Sven and Raul run player acquisition, whereas an Allegri or an Enrique doesn't have to say yes to that because they have other jobs they can take.
Yeah, indeed. But, maybe Arteta's smart enough to know that. Again, we don't know. Maybe he's just like, yeah, okay, I'll work with that because this is a bit of a plum job for me at this point, and I'll do what I'm told. But again, we just don't know that. We don't know that he's going to be a yes man. We don't know how the players he played with will respond to him coming in as a manager. I mean, the thing I would say maybe to counter that suspicion in the interest of balance is that he said no when we offered him a coaching job and he went somewhere else. You can't get less of being a yes man than saying no when you're offered the job. If he was after the comfortable environment, he'd have just taken the coaching job when he retired, but he didn't. He went somewhere else. He went with Guardiola. He was obviously very dedicated to his own education. Honestly, I still think this might be a little bit too soon, and I'm not sure if that education is quite deep or varied enough yet. But if he wanted the easy life, he'd have stayed at Arsenal, and he didn't do that. Like I say, I've heard these things about how he was around players, and you're hearing a lot of this from people who are well placed, like the likes of John Cross. I know Miguel Delaney has been very close to this story, and a lot of them are saying, "Oh no, he wasn't the nice happy clappy guy that everyone kind of thought he was. He has his say, and he always did. And he definitely does that as a coach.
Sure.
So we just have to wait and see. Again, it's another we're elbow deep in the mystery box here, and
that's a new turn of phrase on me. Was that a thing?
We just no, well, it is now.
Okay, cool. I mean, I want a mystery box, and I want to get elbow deep in it.
Well, yeah. The word codpiece didn't exist in the English language until Shakespeare decided it did. So there we go. So,
think higher of yourself.
We're just like we're grasping a little bit in the dark, and we don't know what's going to come out. We don't know. We're not on the training ground. We don't know what he was like with the players. We don't know how they're going to react to this. I imagine that Arsenal have done some due diligence and have a good idea. Whether they've spoken to the players or whether they just think, yeah, we saw him with the players and we know that this will work, or they've told us that they think this will work. Arsenal are we're grasping in the dark, but Arsenal are working with a little bit more here.
Yeah, so here's my thing, right? I believe that Arteta could know football well enough to be one of the premier managers in world football. At his age, you can be a brilliant mind in the game. There's no question of that. He seemed to understand football brilliantly on the pitch. He's been working next to Pep Guardiola, who quite clearly has demonstrated he understands football brilliantly, and he may have absorbed that knowledge. I am not concerned in terms of his football ideas. I also am not concerned in terms of his running a big club capability, because I do think that the stratification of leadership at Arsenal, with Gazidis moving closer to the football, for better or worse, with Raul being there and Sven being there, that his role is much more first-team coach. Where I am worried is that the practice of a profession is different than the idea of a profession. And Clive, I used to be a lawyer, albeit briefly. I was a good law student. I did well in law school, and I passed the bar quite easily. I was not a good lawyer when I started being a lawyer because I didn't know how to do it. That the concepts were easy to understand, but the practice took time to learn. So let me ask you, can anyone, any manager, no matter how brilliant, be a great first-team manager, a first-team coach, having never done it before? Or is there inevitably a learning curve associated with this kind of job, no matter how good your ideas are?
I think when you look at a role like this, you've got to say to yourself, okay, he's gone off and educated himself. We all know that he could have been a youth coach. I think it was under 18s that Arsenal offered him. And he decided to go and work within Pep's backroom staff. I think that's a smart move. What do you think where do you think he's going to learn a little bit more? He's going to add on to his ideas. So I think that's a really smart move. And again, if you become a coach, you've got an idea of a coach, but actually he may be that person with the vision, with the detail, who's good on one-to-ones, who's good at improving players in that regard. And he may have a coach with him that's far greater at group sessions, at structure, at the real detail. He may have somebody that's really focused on analysing games, analysing opponents, giving him data for that. It's all about how he surrounds himself, so he can be the coach that he wants to be. right? So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at not just the team that he's joining, but the team that potentially he will bring. You know, and there are some very smart coaches out there that do some of the fine detail that allows him to be what I've read that he actually is, which is an outstanding individual, outstanding man manager, outstanding one-to-one coach, and somebody that absolutely knows how to motivate people, right? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm not concerned. I think I'm excited. No, I can't say I'm not concerned. I am concerned because how can you not be concerned with a guy that's come in that's never managed one single game of football?
At some point, a lack of experience impacts your ability to do any job. And that's not to say I'm not excited for Arteta, but you would be a fool to dismiss the claim that a lack of experience is a problem. It is a problem. It is manifestly a problem.
It is a problem, but isn't this so very Arsenal? Isn't this so very what we do? I always call us a contrary club. Right, so I think when Wenger came in, I think there were 3 people on the shortlist. If I remember rightly, Tim, it might have been Johan Cruyff, and might have been Terry Venables, and there was some bloke called Arsene Wenger at the bottom. And I'm thinking, I didn't know who that was, but in your heart of hearts, you thought, I bet we're getting the other bloke. Do you see what I mean? And,
yeah, I get you.
And that's exactly what happened, right? And when this all started, we had all these stellar names flying around. And Arteta came in, and I heard Tim speak once about, is it going to be Arteta or someone like Vieira? I thought, don't be stupid, Tim. He's not going to be one of those two. And guess what, right? They're the 2 that's left on the table. And you know, it looks like Arteta's going to get it, right? So it's what we do. We've always done this in our history. We've always been a little bit contrary, and it's normally come out the right way. And
sure,
I'm prepared to look, sit, watch, learn, listen. But don't look at this as something we're trying to replace what's been before. This is a new world at Arsenal. This is a new structure. This is a new way. And let's see, you know, I did say a little while ago, this manager's choice is going to let us know what type of club we actually are. And it's going to let us know what we are. And that concerns me slightly. I don't want us to be a finishing school. I want us to be serious. And so let's see what this guy does when he gets in, how serious he is, and how he deals with the players, how he recruits players, how he turns them over, with the help of the support structure around him. So I'm open-minded on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Isn't there an argument as well that this is perhaps the direction we're going to have to go in, like recruitment-wise, i.e., you know, we sounded out Allegri.
Players who have never played football?
Not interested. Well, yeah. I think we've tried that a few times, actually. But, you know, like, we've sounded out Allegri. He's understandably not available because he thinks he can win the Champions League with Juventus. You know, Klopp's already with Liverpool. You know, we can't quite get those top line kind of
What about
players
Nagelsmann or Jardim or those kind of managers?
Yeah,
surely we could get them.
And again, I don't quite know enough. I mean, to me, Jardim seems a fairly decent fit, but I don't know enough about him to say, oh, yes, definitely. But is there an argument that actually the potential upside of going for, like, the next big thing? I mean, don't get me wrong, this is right on the knife edge because it could very easily go wrong. But, you know, the idea of getting the next big thing in coaching at the age of 36, this is the sort of move that Bundesliga clubs are making, basically. It's not just Nagelsmann. This is very common in the Bundesliga. Yeah. And, you know, we've gone very Teutonic over the last couple of years in our thinking, I think. And I know Ivan is very, very taken with the Bundesliga and the way things are run there. And this is what most of their clubs are doing. They're hiring coaches in their 30s and they're kind of not quite gambling. They're making informed choices, but they're going, right, we're not going to, you know, we're not Bayern. We're not going to get Ancelotti. We're not going to get Allegri. We're not going to get Guardiola. So instead of like going for, I don't know, Brendan Rodgers, or maybe Jardim, or these kind of just below the elite tier where you think, yeah, but how much are they going to push the needle for us a little bit? You know, maybe we do. And I'm not saying that Arteta is this person because I don't know, but maybe we do just have to take that gamble and go, right, he's 36. You know, maybe in 5 years we're not going to be able to get Arteta. Maybe we need to get in on the ground floor on this. And I don't know if maybe there's some of that thinking going on.
Clive?
No, I just wanted to say, it's all about younger people now. The Schalke coach, was his name Tedesco? Something like that. I think he's about 35, 36 as well. I mean, he was one of the sort of soft outsiders as well. I just think the coaching game is becoming for younger men, and the business game is becoming for more middle-aged to older men, and with more experience of running organisations. I don't see why we need to have a situation where we have one guy doing everything. So I think we have to get comfortable with the changes around the European game in particular. We have to get comfortable with how players feel about their managers. And we have to embrace this. And I think it's a change for all of us who's only known, one guy really for the key parts of our lives. And I'm ready for it. I'm genuinely ready for it. And I'm nervous, but I'm ready for change.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that.
Look, the problem for me, so like Moyes, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be our Moyes. No. Moyes was a bad manager. He had figured out how to keep Everton mid-table, and I think he pushed them to the top four once, and that made him like a hero. The reality is Moyes was a pretty dour manager who didn't have great ideas, and when he went to United, it wasn't that he wasn't ready for United. He just wasn't good enough. I have no doubt that Mikel Arteta could go on to have a big managerial career, that his ideas about football may be of a caliber that he is seen as one of the best coaches in world football at some point. My only worry is that some year he'll be looking back and saying, Arsene were so great to give me my chance. My only regret is that I probably wasn't quite ready for it. And by the way, I am excited about the Arteta appointment. I am worried that lack of experience, just the day-to-day, what it takes to be a first-team manager, is one thing to sit and watch someone do it. It is another thing to do it yourself. And I hope he is able to make that transition, because from a footballing idea standpoint, he may be ready. Clive, a final thought, because then I want to talk about the backroom clear out and sort of what comes next.
Yeah, sorry. I suppose I'm about to see Sam Allardyce get another £6 million payoff and coming out of Everton. I just think what's happening in the Premiership is these rotation of older managers that are stopping young coaches getting these jobs. That has to stop.
Yes,
right?
I agree with that.
We accept that. We accept seeing these people continue on the manager merry-go-round and get these jobs, and we're comfortable with the Pardew's and the Pulises and the Allardyces. And really, when somebody new comes up, like a Darren Moore, we question him and think, well, we can't give it to him. Arteta comes in, well, who's he? We have to say to ourselves, if we want to embrace where the game is going, we have to accept what's happening and open our minds up to different people getting these jobs. And people who had multiple payoffs in the past, which I think's pretty immoral, I think has to stop. We have to drive those people away or make them more accountable for their actions, and also make them more accountable for people who should stop giving them such crazy contracts and all their backroom staff, because all they're doing is buying houses in Dubai and having a great time, right? So that's wrong. At least what Arsenal are trying to do, I know it's risky and scary, but it shows a level of foresight, bravery, and ingenuity, and I like it. I like what we're thinking.
Okay, and I mean it's totally fine. I think we're going to find out. I do think. I mean, Tim has a last word here on people's reaction. I am okay with people being of the opinion it's the wrong appointment. I'm okay with people voicing the opinion it's the wrong appointment. Yeah. It feels wrong to me if he gets appointed to then subsequently protest that appointment, because at that point the decision's taken. He's in. And God knows it's his first job and it's a big one. He's going to need some backing. Look, if 3 months in we haven't won a football match and you want to protest and it's turned out to be a complete dumpster fire, by all means, go for it. But I think you can absolutely voice the opinion that you don't agree with the hire and that you think it's wrong. Protesting it if he gets hired seems unproductive, to say the least, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, not only that, it's kind of illogical. There's two things going on with what I would say probably the minority of people that would be minded to go that way. First of all, it's not about the football club for them. It's about them. It's about their ego. It's about I'm right. It's about this, this kind of digital battleground on the internet and see what a mess we are. I was completely right about what a mess we are. Aren't I brilliant? So there's a little bit of that going on. But I mean, generally, just as a philosophy in life, I guess, I don't see the point in getting angry about something that hasn't happened yet, because when it happens, there's still plenty of time to get angry about it. And, your kind of your pitchfork and your bonfire and all your ire will still be there waiting for you. It's not going anywhere, as and when things do actually go wrong. So I'm not sure I understand the logic in getting angry about something that hasn't materialised yet.
Yeah.
Because as and when and you may have the suspicion that it will, which is perfectly fine, but you should reserve like the protesting and the kind of eye-bulging angry stuff until it's actually happened.
Well, and again, I want to make it clear, and I think you agree with me, totally within your right to say, I think this is the wrong hire, that this is not the choice we should be making. That is an opinion that can be supported, and it's an opinion that could wind up being right. But once it's made and we don't have a choice, I mean, shit, I joked on Twitter, we gave Park the number 9 shirt. Like at some point, if you're not willing to, didn't we give Park the number 9 shirt? We did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I tried to strike that from my memory. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is at some point when people make bad choices and the choice is made, you have to make the best of it, at least until you don't. So, I don't see what to do. Now, there has been a big clear out of backroom staff. Do you have any issue with any of the clearing out? I mean, the one that seems to have maybe hit people a little awkwardly and caused some ripples within the club is Colin Lewin was sort of shockingly announced to be let go. I mean, how do you feel about nobody's job being safe at the moment?
First, just to row back ever so slightly on the kind of people protesting. I mean, like you said, it's perfectly okay, and it's perfectly possible to feel two things at the same time. So it's perfectly possible to have reservations, but to put them to one side.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like I said at the beginning, I feel I have reservations, but I'm excited at the same time. And I'm not saying everyone has to be excited, but you can have. You might as well be.
You might as well be because you're getting it whether you like it or not. So.
Do you know what's more important, boys, rather than the manager choice? The most important thing is how the managers support it, right? So
exactly.
That's the key thing. What's the financials going to be? How much support is the individual going to get on an emotional level, on a contracts level, on a legal level, on a recruitment level? How much money is he going to be given? How are we going to work as a club to make sure we give him the money so he can succeed? That's what we need to worry about. So the manager choice, I hope for somebody that can work a lot harder with the players and coach them a little bit more, but that's just my personal bias on football. But you know what? I want to see somebody get supported properly and the full might of Arsenal Football Club come down to help somebody to be successful. I don't want to see a manager in place that's doing 10 jobs. We overwork him till he burns out and has to walk out of the club for 22 years, and we didn't look after our employee. I want to make sure that we are much better support this guy and do what we need to do to make sure that we do that.
Well, absolutely. Go ahead, Tim, please.
Yeah, and that's clearly like what how the club are really trying to position this as well. And as and when the Arteta announcement is made, I think they're making it quite clear that the buck stops with like 5 or 6 of us now, and not just one guy. But yeah, with the whole like protest kind of thing, it just, and being able to feel two conflicting emotions at once, it reminds me a bit of those people that really lack emotional intelligence and say, oh, you can't sing Arsene Wenger's name, now he's going because you wanted him to go. And those people who don't understand really simple concepts like
just super disingenuous. It's just point scoring. That's all that is. That's just point scoring.
Exactly.
But I mean,
exactly.
So Gunnar Hollick on Twitter, who I have tremendous respect for and has been following the Arsenal a very long time and always seems to have very measured and intelligent takes on things, seem to be a little put off by Lewin losing his job and saying that Gazidis needs to be careful and that they're kind of rooting out the Arsenal people and that, fans will start to lose a connection with this club if all the Arsenal people are gone. I mean, I can't say that because I don't have the same reaction to it, but I'm curious to see if you connect with that feeling at all about Lewin going and some of the people that they've gotten rid of.
No, I mean, it's natural, isn't it? That's what happens. That's what happens in pretty much all organisations, high level or otherwise, when when the big man goes, loads of other people go as well. I've been working in government departments all my life, and all my career rather, and this is a totally natural, like, particularly in government, where you are encouraged to leave, big director perm sec posts every 3 to 5 years, and everything is completely refreshed. When the big man goes, or when the director goes, then several people always go afterwards. That's just a natural part of life. I mean, obviously, for someone like Colin Lewin, that's pretty tough, because he's been there for quite a long time. He's an established part of the club. I think from the outside, it looks like on the medical side, we've improved over the last few years. Injuries don't seem to be as big an issue as they once were. But, they brought in, this was apparently part of a review that Darren Burgess, kind of took part in. And that's just the way it is. Different people come in, they have different ideas, and they want different people. And I'm sure Colin Lewin is good enough that he will be able to find work elsewhere. It's just a natural part of life. Like, actually, what's strange and what makes Arsenal strange and quite unique is that all these people have been here for 20 years plus. I'm not sure. There's certainly not another top level football club I can think of that's had that kind of thing going on. So, I think it goes back to what Clive said. This perhaps just feels a bit uncomfortable for us because it's a little bit unusual. But actually, our club's been quite unusual, and this is just one of the things that happens. And that's just an absolutely natural part of life. And look, this has been in the post for a long time. Like, Ivan has been kind of constructing these pillars, but I say behind the scenes advisedly, because it's all been quite public actually. So you can see where the wind's been blowing on this for quite some time. He's done the big bits. He's understood that Arsene Wenger needs to be replaced with 4 or 5 people, and now he's done that. He's working on the minutiae a little bit. So, and also, when it comes to the club values and keeping people around, there's loads of people around. They appointed Jens Lehmann last year. It sounds like he's staying. Steve Bold has been asked to stay. Sounds like Freddie Ljungberg has been invited back. Steve Morrow is still there, heading up academy recruitment. There are tons of ex-Arsenal players in that staff. Ryan Gary is another one that's there. Greg Lincoln, a guy who was in Arsenal's academy about 20 years ago, he's on the youth side as well. I just because it's not like Vieira, Omri or Adams, people seem to have this idea that like Arsenal have completely done away. There's tons of ex-players there. And I think Jens Lehmann is a smart one. And I don't know if you remember last summer when we spoke about that, I said I didn't think that was Arsene's call. I thought that was Ivan's call.
That's not a personality that's consistent with the kind of environment Arsene like to have around him.
No, that almost seemed pointed to me. That was like, oh yeah, is this a comfortable environment? Is it? I'm going to get the most divisive kind of assertive character we've possibly ever had under your tutelage.
The counterpoint to that would be it turned around and got us to 6th place. So maybe it wasn't the best idea.
But what I kind of mean with that is, I think Jens he's been sitting in the stands. He doesn't travel with the team to games. I see him on the train to away games all the time. He's kept a distance, and I think he was appointed very much probably wait around the year. Go and sit in the stand. Take your notes, talk to Mr. Wenger, say yes, please, thank you. Next year, you'll get your time. That's just my kind of inference. But yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a bit of a cull, but I think that was always on the cards, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course. So let's get to one more backroom thing, and then we're going to talk players really briefly. We're not going to do the transfer bit yet or the end of season award stuff. That will come in the next week or two. But Clive, Arsenal did a great job burying an unwanted news story with a lot of bigger news, but there was a little bit of scandal and unfortunately a pretty unsavory situation at the youth level that came to light, clear out that took place there, not as part of managerial change, but as part of, unfortunately, some bad behavior. Any thoughts on what happened at the youth level and how the club moves forward from that?
Yeah, I think the club at least have approached it. They haven't hidden it. This has been something that's been going on for many years, and it's not just involving one or two players, it's multiple players. I do know a lot about this, actually. I'm quite close to this, and I won't say too much because it's a very sensitive topic. But Arsenal have attacked it. I think what they've done is during various sort of exit interviews when players are either released or they move on to other clubs, the same theme has been coming up, right? And so they've investigated it. They were walked off the premises a few weeks back. I can say that 'cause that's in public domain. And it really came to most people's light when they had the International Cup tournament under 23 level, and Kwame Ampadu sort of took that job, and people were wondering where those two coaches were, and that's when it became a bit more of a investigative item. And so, these things happen at football clubs, not just Arsenal. The coaches have an immense amount of power. They have an immense amount of influence. They can decide who gets minutes on games. It's a very competitive environment with a huge amount of reward if you make it. And at the Cat 1 academies, it's just a completely massively competitive environment. And the coaches hold the power, and they can use that influence. If they use it well, you get good things happen. If they use it badly and repeatedly badly, they earn a bad reputation. And one of those coaches, I must say, had a bad reputation before he came to Arsenal. And it was a big surprise when he got that role. And it's no surprise to me that this has happened. I didn't know anything about Steve Gatting, but I knew about Carl Larriman, and it's no surprise to me at all. And this will run and run for a little while. But Arsenal have addressed it, and they are addressing it, shall we say. I know how they're doing that, but I won't say. They are addressing it, and let's see how this ends up in the court.
I'm glad they're addressing it. I'm glad they're taking care of it. I want to ask a question that may seem insensitive in light of what's happened there, and certainly the most important thing is the well-being of the young men who are at the club and that they are treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. Having said that, you said this gentleman arrived at the club with concerns around him and that you're not surprised at what happened. Does it raise questions about the decision-making at the club that they whiffed on this, that they missed on this, that they made this decision? I mean, that is a decision made by the club, and they're making big decisions now. Does it concern you?
It does concern me, but it has concerned me for a while at the youth level. Let's see where this ends up, right? There are other people that were... All I will say, there are other people in charge of academy during this period. Let's see where this ends up. I won't go to any further than that. But, you're talking about people going and being let go. Sometimes when you're being a club for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, for some people like Steve Rowley, how long has Steve Rowley been there? A long, long time. You can get lazy in your work practices. You can. And I don't wish any ill on anybody, but we are so due renewal. If you look at any sort of high-performance team model, look at the phases when they talk about when you need to renew your staff. And we just haven't done that. We've kept it very comfortable, very samey, and we've fallen behind the times. And I'm afraid in some aspects of recruitment and how we liaise with agents, we've become the laughingstock of the wider game. And some of the people that Gazidis has hired, trust me, these are the top people in their fields. The absolute top people, and no doubt a huge expense. And they're going to bring in their top people. And that's the way business is, and that's the way it works. And I am hugely encouraged and excited that as a club, we're starting to renew. You heard me talk about the cultural side of things. We're starting to renew people, which is only going to lead to renewing the culture. And
fair enough.
I can't wait.
Yeah, look, it doesn't even have to be laziness, right? Like, if you're in the same job 20 years, you can start out being a visionary and have ideas about how you do your job. And when you do them, you can achieve excellence, and you can rise to the top of your profession and think that the way you do it is the right way, and continue to do it that way for years and years and years and years, and never realize that over those years it's changed and what you're doing is no longer the best practices, but you've believed they're the best practices by virtue of your ascension to the top of your career, top of your field. And it's not laziness, it's just a lack of ability to see the world around you, to see that it's changed and that you've stayed the same. So I agree that you have to refresh sometimes to get new ideas in about how things can be done. We're doing that. Maybe some of the decisions are the wrong ones. We'll find out. I would say I am open to the idea that Arteta is a stroke of genius as an appointment and a really adventurous and exciting appointment. I am open to the idea that it is critically, it is criminally stupid, and that he is not prepared and will fail miserably. But the great thing is we're going to find out. So why don't we wait and see? Last topic here, Tim, for the time being, something interesting, I think. So Jack Wilshere did not make the England team, and I mean, look, I don't think Jack Wilshere is brilliant, but I think England has as bad a midfield as you will find in world football, and I think not bringing Jack Wilshere doesn't make a lot of sense. So maybe 3 or 4 sentences, nothing overwhelming, but do you think that Southgate made a big mistake leaving him back, or do you think it's the right choice?
I'd like to hear his reasons for it. Whether it's just based on concerns over fitness, or whether it's never seemed to me like Southgate has been totally on the Jack train, as it were. He's always seemed a bit lukewarm, so I'm not massively surprised. I'd be interested to know why that is.
Could it just be like he wasn't there for qualifying, and Southgate
maybe
just feels I've got to go with the team that qualified?
Yeah, maybe. And he's one of the things Southgate's worked quite hard on is getting a system and trying to get the players really, really into it, and really establish like a style. And something that they all understand. And yeah, that's probably difficult to do when someone's not really been included. And look, if someone never kicks a ball for you, and Jack probably lost his chance, unfortunately, when he got that slight injury when he was called up in March. Because if someone hasn't kicked a ball for you before the World Cup, 99 times out of 100, you don't get in the World Cup squad. That's why the Theo Walcott. Well, it's one of the reasons the Theo Walcott story was so remarkable, because that stuff just doesn't tend to happen. So I think it says that he has a lot more faith in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, whether that's now or for the future, or whether he just thinks that Ruben Loftus-Cheek fits what he wants a bit better. So I'm not massively surprised. I'm curious about it, though. I'd like to hear. I'd like an explanation.
You demand an explanation. I get it. You demand an explanation. Totally fair.
Because I'm furious. Yeah.
Clive, I mean, can you provide that explanation?
I'm not surprised at all. I think Southgate, if you look at his background, he's a youth coach, right? He has a lot of those players and the under-21s, and he's comfortable with them. And the thing is with Jack, he's not so much Jack the footballer. It's all the luggage that he brings. Every time he plays or doesn't play, there's a huge sort of press fury around him, and I don't think Southgate wants that. He studies other sports. He spends time with Eddie Jones, and he's big on the cultural side. He's big on there's no stars in my group. This is my group, and you're a certain way. And Jack is just different. He's a maverick, and I just don't think Southgate wants those mavericks. I mean, he railed against Wilshere when he was younger. Sahar wouldn't. He was very much individual. He was not so useful with the ball at the time. He kept it too long. And Southgate rejected him very publicly. And then get the chance to actually bring him on board, he rejected it. And now Sahar potentially could be a £50 million player going to Man City. He's probably the best player outside of the top 6, right? So when he decides you're not part of his sort of culture, then he will go against you. I think Jack falls into that maverick piece, I'm afraid, and that would take the shine away from the group collective that he's trying to bring forward. Well, I never thought he'd take him. I'm sure it's not about football, it's about other things.
I'm sure Jack will find some way to enjoy his summer. I have full faith that he will figure that out. So then it leads to an interesting point, though. Jack Wilshere doesn't make the World Cup team. Lacazette, I think quite harshly, does not make the French team. Aubameyang, they're not in the World Cup. Aaron Ramsey, they're not in the World Cup, assuming he sticks around. This could be quite interesting. Mkhitaryan, not in the World Cup. I mean, Tim, is it potentially a huge advantage for the club that all of the really important attacking players and creative players and players that we are going to need to depend on if we're going to do anything next season potentially have the whole summer off?
Yeah, I think that's a huge upside. And even some of them, there's actually not that many players going. It's Ozil, it's Iwobi. Is Mustafi going to make the Germany squad? He wasn't in the
Don't think so.
Is he going to make the Arsenal squad?
Well, yeah, there is that.
I think Welbeck will go. If that's the only one.
Welbeck's not a crucial player for us. I mean, is Monreal's probably not going to go.
Nope.
I mean, it's really, you're looking at Granit Xhaka, and Switzerland aren't going to go deep. Iwobi, I'd be surprised if Nigeria went that deep. It's really only Ozil in that squad at the moment. The rest of them have either retired or play for countries that haven't qualified. And yes, to your point,
tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
El Neni will go probably, won't he?
Yeah.
Is he going to be fit?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's about fit now, but they just they didn't.
But yeah, the point stands. I mean, Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, Lacazette, Ramsey, Wilshere. I mean, it's a hell of a group to be leaving back, and it also means that we can have a preseason for the first time in God knows how long.
Exactly,
that looks something like a squad preparation.
And for a new manager, that's going to be quite crucial.
Yeah. So I mean, does that give you, if you were going to be optimistic, that combined with obviously all the incredible spending we're going to do, that would be the reason for the optimism, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there is that to it. Again, counter that by saying, we were saying this time last year, well, the good thing about being in the Europa League is that we won't have to play our first team in the group stage.
They all just rest, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, it all comes down to how the new manager is going to fare, isn't it? Really, but that's a marginal gain already for the new manager. So, I think there's every reason to be positive about that.
Clive?
It's not a bad thing, is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it isn't. And that's why, I tweeted something about, like, I feel bad for Lacazette not getting into the French team. Everyone's like, well, he'll be rested for us. I was like, whoa. I didn't say I wanted him in the team. I just feel bad for him. Clive, I mean, a final thought on that. You agree? Is that a potentially huge advantage for us, especially given that most teams will have such a short preseason?
Yeah, I think it is a huge. I didn't know about Lacazette, actually. I knew he was on the edge. I saw a preview squad, but I didn't know if he was actually.
Yeah, you're a casual observer of the game. It's totally fine. I get it.
Oh, I missed that one. Man, keep making me work. I must get onto it more at work. That's a blow for him because I think he deserves it. I think they were looking at that guy Thovan who used to be at Newcastle. I don't agree with that at all. But yeah, it's good for us, right? And again, we're into the unknowns. We don't know who's going to stay, who's going to go. We really don't. I know we're not going to do transfers this time, but I look forward to that podcast.
Oh, no, we're saving that one for the hashtag clicks. So, yeah, don't waste that.
I'm ready for that one, mate. I tell you, I've been reading up. Right? So yeah, I think it's going to be positive. But like I say, we've got so many unknowns, we don't really know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if that doesn't sum up the podcast, we don't really know.
We don't know.
I don't know what does.
Don't know.
So I think we should leave it there. Tim's on Twitter at Stillberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure, as always.
As always. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thank you, friend.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can and should block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. I really, really insist upon it. It is very important that you do so. Please give us a 5-star review. I mean, look, what else do you have going on? You write this 5-star review, you can write all this nasty, silly shit about Paul, say terrible things about him. The guy deserves it. I mean, Scott will be back at a future moment. We're going to do a postseason review podcast that gives out awards, talks about highs and lows, and Scott will kind of cover statistically where we went wrong. I feel like it may heavily involve the words away form, but we'll get to that. In any event...
Or defense?
Well, now you're getting too granular for me, my friend. That's over my head. In any event, we will be back with the transfer special and a postseason awards show. We'll be wearing tuxedos. You don't want to miss it. So we'll talk to you after Arsenal sign. Nobody. Cheers.